Hello. This is OverDrive. My name is Brendan Dunlop. Happy to be alongside former Toronto Maple Leaf and TSN hockey analyst Frankie Corrado. What's up, my man? You are very well dressed today.
You are player coach Reg Dunlop on these airwaves.
I am very excited that this nickname, I feel like this will stick now. It had been tossed about before, naturally, with the last name Dunlop.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, I could pass for a Reggie.
Here's how you'll know if it's stuck or not. When we get the schedule, if you're in there as Reg Dunlop and not Brendan Dunlop, that's when you know it's stuck.
I'm just happy that I'm still learning all the names. It's Joe from the Bridge that controls the...
Joe from the Bridge controls everything.
Right.
Yeah. But Joe from the Bridge is actually off today, so JP's controlling everything. And JP's, he's sinister like that. Like, he likes controlling everything.
Yeah, I know. Anytime I say anything bad about the Patriots, he gets in my ear.
Yeah.
And it's like he's got, the interrupted mic, so it's like he's got the sound effects, he's controlling everything.
Yeah.
But Joe from the Bridge had the font correct because he called me Dunlop instead of Brendan. I prefer to just go surname, so I was happy with that.
Oh, is that like when we're in boxes, he put you as Dunlop?
I think it was the boxes I noticed up there.
Okay.
Yeah. It was Dunlop and Frankie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to have Reg and Frank.
I mean, Corrado and Dunlop's got a good sound to it as well.
Yeah, we can make that work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have the Portuguese last name, of course.
No.
But I do have a Portuguese grandfather who I'm sure would have been at odds with your grandfather. But now, that rivalry that existed in the 50s and 60s when they were building the 427, I feel like that's gone in our generation.
You think so?
But we are reminded of it constantly.
Yeah, the older generation seems to hang on to that. Or it almost seems like the high school generation. There's always, I don't know.
You were in the Bridge. There must have been some Portuguesers up there.
Yeah, for sure.
And so there was a mix in the hockey circles, or no?
In the hockey circles, not as much. I feel like it's just a mixed bag of everything.
Yeah.
But more in the community. I don't know.
You mean at Highway 7, the Tim Hortons?
Yeah, Highway 7, Tim Hortons. Yeah. 7 in Martin Grove.
Yeah, wherever the Civics pull up, you're saying.
Yeah, who's got the loudest Civic? The Italians got the loudest Civic, or the Portuguese have the loudest Civic?
Well, give me your answer, Bias Woodbridge.
Oh, the Italians have the loudest Civic, and
100%.
I don't know if that's something to be proud of. We'll ask Andy Petrillo, maybe.
Was that your first ride?
You know what? It actually was my first. I'm not even embarrassed.
Not a walk-in stereotype.
It was my first ride, and I realized a few months into having the vehicle that on the roof there was these two marks for where the pizza delivery sign used to be. So you could see these two circle outlines. So I realized it was a former pizza delivery car.
Oh, I love that, man.
Yeah.
I was talking about throwing pizzas up the middle of the ice yesterday. You didn't throw too many pizzas up the ice?
I did. Yeah.
Oh,
for the games that I did play. Yeah, the pizza to games played ratio was outrageous. That's why I was in the press box most of the time.
Do you find that the hockey talk, the language has changed? You know how...
the lingo in the dressing room?
Yeah. New generations always find a way to bring slang to a whole new level, right? But I feel like the hockey talk has got to a point where I'm like, am I even from this country?
Yeah, I feel like if I got planted into a dressing room again, and I'm fresh out of the game, but I'm sure there's some things that I don't recognize or we weren't saying.
There's a lot. I love how when you get on the ice, though, and the guys turn it on. My buddy Mikey talks like you and me off the ice, but on the ice, he's a Letterkenny character.
Yeah, and you know what? There's something to be said for that. Where I don't care what level you play at, whether it's professional hockey, junior hockey, beer league hockey. You get on the ice and you almost turn into this different persona where you're chirping the goalie, or you're chirping the other team, and then it's just Brad from accounting at KPMG, who's the most straight and narrow guy. Meanwhile, on the ice, this guy's he's chirping everyone.
Yeah, everyone's looking for a fight too, right? And then the line, everyone's got to work tomorrow, bud. Everyone's got to work tomorrow, bud. Yeah. The big change, the big shocker is guys playing with lips. With they've got the tobacco, they got the zin in the lip.
Yeah. So not the long cut, not the big things that you're spitting all over the place.
No, the new clean.
Yeah. Guys were doing that when I was playing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Still guys doing that. It was cutting edge at the time.
Inside stuff.
What do you think we're in for today?
I don't know. Is something crazy gonna happen? Is Shohei Ohtani gonna tell us that he's never playing in Major League Baseball again?
I was thinking, does Tom Brady come out of retirement today?
Well, Baker Mayfield's gonna start week 1, so he's coming out actually week 4. Brady's coming out.
Yeah, they'll go
here first.
They'll go 0-4. Hayes will take a day off.
Yeah.
Be you, me, and Noodles, or you, me, and O. I don't know. Maybe it'll be you, O, and Noodles.
Maybe. Well, my man, I feel like you and me are destined to have big news happen again.
It could happen.
After an entire show that Grappler had prepared yesterday to talk about hockey once, and then it became Leafs talk from 5 until 7.
How have you been digesting the Auston Matthews contract?
I mean, I've been thinking about it a little bit. Are you a big dreamer? Do you dream a lot?
I don't remember dreams. That's the issue.
Ever?
I'm sure everyone dreams, but I don't remember them.
Huh. Interesting.
Yourself?
I'm not going to analyze it, and I wouldn't want mine analyzed. But yeah, I tend to dream.
Okay.
Although I've been through a period where I haven't dreamed much, and I made reference of this recently, and then I had a nightmare. I had a nightmare. I was late for the show, but it wasn't even I didn't show up at 4:30. I was sleeping in here, and it was a morning show, but I didn't wake up, and so it was just running dead air for 90 minutes until I woke up and then just tried to pick up the pieces.
Did you wake up in a sweat?
Yes.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Those are terrifying.
Yeah.
Not a good feeling.
Well, the biggest nightmare is the fact that you were actually sleeping in the studio.
Why is that a nightmare? Because I live here?
This is not where are you sleeping in here? It's like a cold, hard concrete floor.
Hey man, you grinded. You were the hardcore dedicated to your craft. In this business, there's people sleeping under the tables at certain points.
You know what?
Life.
The equipment guys, you would be shocked at how many nights the equipment guys will sleep at the arena. Because you get in somewhere at 2, 3 in the morning.
Right.
They got to go to the arena. They got to unpack everything, set everything up. And then by the time that's all done, there's 2 hours before the coaching staff is coming back to the arena. So guys will sleep on the medical tables.
Were you close with those guys? I feel like you would have been close with all the staff.
I always tried, and listen, everyone tries to make an effort with the equipment guys and the medical guys because they do so much behind the scenes. So I think everyone should, give them a little more extra attention and time. For me, I was just around them a lot, right? Because if you're not playing, you're at the rink doing more for practice. You're doing more at morning skate. You're in the room during the games when everyone else is on the ice. So, you hang out with those guys a little bit more.
Yeah.
I had my whole routine where, you do your workout during the first period and then, kind of mosey on around the arena, find some popcorn, so you're always kind of, I don't know, you're always in the mix with those guys.
If the All or Nothing cameras were around at the time, it'd be you playing poker with Willie from the medical staff?
They would have ignored me.
The kit man? They would have ignored you. The cameras? No way, buddy.
Yeah.
The cameras love you now, man. Yeah, a lot of play. I loved seeing how much content from the show yesterday got pulled. That was a masterclass for me to kind of be dropped in and see how you guys responded. Grappler getting the regulars on.
Dude, you steered the ship
immediately.
Very impressive how you steered the ship.
Oh.
But it's no wonder. You're player coach Reg Dunlop. You know how to steer the ship.
Yeah,
player, coach, and captain. Reg
I think
Dunlop.
every producer loves a host that feels like he could co-produce. So I just grab it. I got it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. No problem.
Exactly.
But you quick with the phones, man. You're like a Chris Johnston 2.0.
No, well, I get the info from CJ. CJ was breaking it. I think CJ broke the dollar value for the Matthews contract. So shout out to our pal CJ.
A nice 13.25 to digest. So to finally answer your question from 4 minutes ago, has it sunk in yet, the numbers? I've thought about it a lot, and there's one thing that I keep thinking about. We spoke about it yesterday when the news came out, having spent a bit of the first hour talking about Willie Nylander's comments being no urgency. And then it comes out via a tweet from Auston Matthews that he signed. Whether there's a connection at all with the timing? Could they have waited for everyone to be in Toronto, as you say, to do this big unveil? Why do it? Why do it then? I kept thinking about that. And not because I want to be a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
It's just hard in this market not to think that everything is connected.
Listen, sometimes you just get it done, and it's got to get announced when it finally gets done. But I've two things that I've been thinking about today. One is the way that Auston Matthews has strategically planned his career with his contracts. And then I believe Sean, who's producing today, just had a tweet up on the screen about where that Auston Matthews deal ranks compared to some of the other sports.
I couldn't read it because my contacts suck.
Well, okay, so his new mega deal for $13.25 million makes him the highest paid NHLer. It would also make him the 113th highest paid player in the NBA, 103rd highest paid player in the MLB, and the 88th highest paid player in the NFL, which is just shocking.
It's nuts.
Shocking to see how low the NHL players are paid compared to the other big sports. But it just goes to show you how much of a money-making machine and revenue-generating machine that those other sports are compared to the NHL.
Yeah. The gap.
That's the nature of the beast.
The gap between now and 20 years ago in those sports, though, it's nuts because you have seen the NHL grow. It seems like it's grown at a sustainable pace and a healthy pace. And maybe, the other leagues aren't as sustainable and as healthy as they'd like to appear or present. But when you look at those salaries and you see in Toronto, Auston Matthews is probably towards, I think he'd probably be double digits. I don't think he'd be top 10, the highest paid guys in Toronto.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Insigne is making more than him at Toronto FC. Like, that's nuts.
I know.
That's nuts. But Insigne would be like the highest paid guy in the Raptors.
Right.
So there's also that.
Oh, it's crazy, right? But you see the ratings every year for the NHL playoffs, and you're like, okay, like that it makes sense, right? It's not the NBA, it's not the NFL, it's not the MLB. The TV deal is not what those leagues have. So that's kind of the conclusion. That's where we're at with the NHL. The other thing, going back to the way he's kind of strategically planned his contracts, and I thought the O-Dog put it perfectly yesterday when he talked about how this kid from Arizona is going to commit 12 years of his career in Toronto to be in a Canadian city, and that should mean something. It absolutely should. But the way he's structured his deals, so he's got the 3-year entry level, does a 5-year deal, does a 4-year deal, that brings him to age 30. Now at age 30, he's probably going to cash in on that 7 or 8-year deal that's going to bring him right to retirement, and that's going to be the big bang. Like, that's the one where you say, okay, we're putting all our chips in here. Mm-hmm. And instead of him signing an 8-year deal now and then that deal expiring at 34, you know what happens at that age, right? Like, your production can decline. You could be injured, often. And then teams look at it and say, okay, well, if you were making, $14.5 million for the last 8 years, but your production's not there anymore, we can't offer you that, right? We got to go down, and it's probably going to be a 2 or 3 year deal. Now, he's put himself in a situation where at 30 years old, at the conclusion of this next deal, he's done himself a favor by, shaving a little bit off of this one, making it seem like he's left some money on the table, which he has for this team. And now at 30 years old, he's going to say, okay, everyone open up the checkbook, because if you want me for 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, you're going to have to pay me the same at 35, 36, 37, and 38. And it's going to cost a lot. But he's going to basically hit the upswing on every single contract and maximize it perfectly if everything goes according to plan. Of course, there's some risk involved.
In 5 years' time, there's one guarantee. I think he'll walk into those meetings wearing the turtleneck from the commercials.
Chain or no chain?
Chain.
Okay.
Yeah. But at that time, 30, 31, I don't know if we'll still be doing 8-year deals.
Right.
So actually, I do think it's smart to have played it based on the times. I actually very much agree with all that you've said to line up for that. But I think the NHL might be in a very different place. He's put himself in a protected place that he could probably get whatever the new max is. But in 5 seasons from now, I'm thinking 5 years will be the max. Because remember when they started doing 8s? It was like, whoa, 8, what are you doing? This is a Rick DiPietro deal.
Well, guys were signing 12-year deals at one point, and then it came down to 8.
It came down to 8, yeah.
And now I believe, we could ask Dregs later, but I think the max you can sign now is 20% of the cap.
Yes.
Right? So he's just under 16% of the cap. I believe Joe from the Bridge had it yesterday. It's like 15.8%. And McDavid was at 16.6% of the cap when he signed his deal back in 2017. So listen, he didn't take more than what McDavid took at the time, so the comparable actually works quite well.
You good math guy? Like, the numbers are impressive. You just rattled.
That is Joe from the Bridge.
Oh,
he
wow.
did that.
But I mean, we're talking Joe's off today. Like,
I just remember.
I know. We're talking 24 hours later.
That's Joe from the Bridge.
Like,
That's his baby.
I don't remember what I read yesterday. You kidding me? I've never had but tell me who was playing shortstop for the Cleveland Indians in '96, and I'll tell you.
Who was it?
Omar Vizquel.
Yeah?
But for whatever reason, these are things I remember. Another random thing. I cannot tell you why, but I know that the New Jersey Devils won the Stanley Cup on June 24th, 1995. Why would I remember that date?
I have no
idea. Not a Devils fan. No, just because it was that strike-shortened year, and they played like late into the summer, and we were already out of school. Burn in the memory.
There you go.
Yeah. But I struggled to remember my son's birthday. I was like, March. I had to write it down for a flight. March March. Oh yeah, that's the day.
Yeah, you were sleep deprived. That's why.
It could be that. Maybe that's it. Yeah. Well, we'll talk to another new dad in a little bit. Josh Lewenberg is going to join us. You mentioned Darren Dreger. We'll get into some of the fine math details with him. I do admire, like Dreger for being a guy who has to deal with math and numbers all the time and never seems like fazed by it. Right? You get like in this role, we talk about numbers, and then you got to admit, like, I'm sick of talking about numbers.
Well, dude, like
Dregs must be.
Guys make mistakes with numbers all the time, and then someone's got to tweet at you say, actually, right? Okay. As long as we're close, I think it's fair.
I felt bad. I did it to you yesterday. You got it right.
Did you hit me with an actually?
No, you got it right, and I corrected you, and then realized I was wrong.
Did you see how little confidence I had in myself about it? I'm like, oh, Dunlop knows. Reg knows.
No, he's
the coach.
We're still getting used to each other. You were just being kind. You're like, I'm not gonna like bully
whatever Reg says goes.
I would. Well, I'll get into plenty of soccer if you want a little bit later, buddy.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Blue Jays because after seeing how they performed against the Orioles in the opener on Tuesday, I was expecting a lot more with Kevin Gausman on the hill yesterday.
Well, he doesn't get any run support, man.
I know.
He all year, this has been a story that has plagued this team when Gausman is on the mound. No run support. And, like we have the clip. At some point we'll play it, but it just sounds like he's frustrated. Mm-hmm. He's frustrated after the game. And anytime a player not calls out his team, but it's almost like there's only so much you can say in a clubhouse, in a dressing room. Like sometimes maybe you need to vent it through the media, although like that, not ideal.
No.
Not plan number one, but that was ugly. And really, the Auston Matthews news yesterday was a distraction from how ugly of a performance that was for the Jays all around.
I think, though, that performance in particular is one that Jays fans, or we in the media, expected to see at some point in this series. You're going up against a team that's owned you all year.
Yes.
You're not. You took the first one off them, but you're 9-3 against Baltimore on the season.
Well, and the unfortunate thing is the Mariners lose last night, and the Jays can't take advantage. And that's, there's another little microcosm of what the Jays season has been like, unable to take advantage at certain times when certain things happen.
Gausman couldn't hold back. Let's hear what he said last night after that performance.
We're just waiting for that, that big stretch. And we've kind of been waiting for that all year. And, is it going to happen? I don't know. I hope it does. I hope it starts tomorrow. But we can't keep sitting back and waiting on that. We got to go now, and we need a little bit more sense of urgency.
Ooh, urgency.
It's interesting.
Love that word.
It's interesting hearing that term in baseball, because I could tell you what urgency means in hockey, but I couldn't tell you what urgency means in baseball. Like, I guess if you're talking about plate appearances, right? Like, or okay, let's start with pitching. Like, if you're a pitcher, it's pretty simple. Throw more strikes, right? Like, don't mess around. Throw fastballs, throw more strikes. That's what I get from that. Mm-hmm. But if you're at the plate, it's like, okay, maybe you got to swing a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe, like, what is the urgency for a baseball player?
I feel as though the generalization is that the team does not feel that these are must-win games. That taking wins off of Baltimore, winning this series, locking up a win in that series with a performance last night, supporting what he gave you on the mound, like, that's urgency. Recognizing the opportunity at hand that if you beat the best team in your division, you're closing ground, and then also, as it turned out, it would have helped you with the Mariners. The fact that they are not patient, but that they have not been able to consistently pull themselves out.
Like when I hear him talk like that, it just sounds like maybe it's a little too casual. And that's something that they wanted to address from last year. Right? So they made some changes. They brought some guys in like Kiermaier and Varsho and Brandon Belt. Brandon Belt's been really good. Varshall's been better of late. Kiermaier's, he's pretty consistent. But those were the guys that were supposed to kind of change the attitude of the team and make it not be so casual. But maybe with Gausman coming out saying that, it still has that casual tendency, whether it's in the dugout or in the clubhouse or at the plate in the field.
What does that do in the room, though? Like when a guy gets, whether he's got caught in the moment, the cameras are in front, and he's let it out, or if he's strategically doing it. There wasn't thought behind that. He was being honest.
Yeah.
But what does it do in the room?
I don't think that causes any kind of big rift or divide or anything like that. I just think it's one of those things where it's a guy who's obviously frustrated for a few different reasons, and he's just kind of talking authentic and genuine. And there's nothing really wrong with that. I don't think anyone's going to go up to him and pull him aside and be like, hey, what were you talking about? Like, if you're pulling him aside and asking him what he was talking about, then you're oblivious to the fact that your team is, not where it wants to be in the standings, underachieving to a certain degree. And it's like, dude, get with the program here. Like, things are supposed to be going better. And they're not. So if you don't see it with your own eyes, like, I don't know, like, there's no helping you at that point.
I think it'd be so different too, right? If they, and they grinded out the win in extras on Tuesday.
Well, it was such a captivating win on Tuesday.
That's what I mean. It
could have been such a rallying point.
It should have been.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was. It felt like it to me, just observing it on the outside, miles away.
Well, and it's not like one of those things where now you're just gonna, you're gonna come up to the ballpark the next day in Baltimore and roll over them. Like, you knew they were gonna come back with a better performance, but at least be in the fight, right? I think that's what Gausman is kind of talking about there as well. It's like, let's be in the fight every game. Let's not just mail it in for a night and not know who's gonna step up and not have any production at the plate and so on and so forth. That seems like that's what's been plaguing this team. Every once in a while, it's like there's no one getting a hit, or pitcher can't make it out of the fifth inning, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, the fact that they only got 5 hits, off of a guy that had given up, I think it was 17 hits in his last 2 appearances, Dean Kramer, against the Jays. So
he wasn't even supposed to start.
I know. This is I totally feel where he's coming from.
A lineup like the Jays should see a pitcher like that be scheduled to start a game, and they should be salivating, saying like, we're gonna take full advantage of this guy.
There should be more urgency.
At
the plate.
Like we talk about it with the Leafs, the killer instinct.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard killer instinct when it comes to the Leafs?
Yeah.
Now the term for the Jays is urgency.
Yeah. That's the thing. Wasn't that your line?
That's the thing.
With
Uncle Leo.
Holland when we were in here?
That was Uncle Leo. That was his line. That's the thing.
What are the cliches that you hear now that you're on this side of the table?
It is what it is.
Nuts?
It is what it is.
Like, you hate hearing it?
I don't hate it, but you hear it a lot.
Yeah.
We'll see.
You don't seem like a guy that hates much, to be honest.
No. We'll see what happens.
What about guys that put ice cubes in their Spros? Would you hate that?
I don't like that.
Carlo Koliak.
You got to respect the coffee.
I don't get that.
Yeah, respect the coffee.
I don't get why, especially like midday. Iced coffee is different.
Yes.
But if you're talking about the classic traditional espresso cup, you can't put an ice cube in it.
No. And iced Americano is different.
Yes, of course.
No, you can't put ice in espresso.
Especially if you're doing it at home. You can't pull it out of the Bialetti.
By the way, speaking of Carlo, this guy texted me yesterday after the show, and he goes, "What's up with that?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You think John Lou has the best style at TSN?" I said, "No, I didn't say John Lou. Dunlop said John Lou." He goes, "No, it was you. I heard you say John Lou has the best style at TSN." He goes, "I gave you one of my," he's got like a clothing line. He goes, "I gave you a shirt and a hat, and you don't say that I have the best style." I said, "Dude, go back and listen. It was Reg that said John Lou." So, JP, I don't know. If you can pull that up so we can call Carlo out on that, that would be fantastic.
So it's funny you say that, because
John Lou's got great style, by the way. No disrespect to John Lou.
This has nothing to do with John Lou. It has everything to do with, do we sound the same?
That's what I'm thinking.
Because we had a guest on before it turned into Hockey Talk, Thomas Rongen, the color commentator for Inter Miami, who are now headed off to the U.S. Open Cup final, so Messi has another chance to win a trophy. And you asked him a question, and he responded by saying, yeah, Brendan, this is what I think.
So maybe we just sound the same.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to call Carlo out on this, because he was adamant that it was me, and I didn't say it. So
we'll see if we
got me in trouble with your take on Johnny Lou.
See if we can pull the tape back later. Maybe this just means we all got to go golfing, and you guys can just laugh at me because I am a disaster.
Okay, before we go to break, JP, let's play it. Who said that John Lou has the best style at TSN?
The most fashionable at TSN.
For golfing?
John Lou.
John Lou, just in general?
100%.
John Lou, TSN, Montreal. Can you confirm that was you?
Oh, that 100% that was me.
Thank
I was
you.
also listening to, like, this microphone is incredible.
Yeah, it's a great
Like,
mic.
for someone that's done a lot from home recently, and the iPhone headphones or the mic that everyone's selling to do podcasts, like, this sounds great.
Yeah.
I don't think we sound alike.
Somewhat alike.
Really?
Somewhat.
I mean, there are times like I can have a Woodbridge twang to my accent. I've been told in the past, but I feel like the voices are different. Maybe it's just in the playback.
Do you think I have like a Woodbridge accent?
I mean, there's a little bit of a like I can tell you're from a GTA.
When I left high school to go up and play in Sudbury, and I came back to my high school, people are like, "Why are you talking weird? Like, why are you talking like that?" So I don't know. This is how I talk now.
Change there, bud. You got the hybrid. That's the thing too.
Yeah,
you guys, you've experienced all the beauties of this province. And
That's right.
It's influenced the
That's
sound.
right.
Well,
Shout out, John Lou.
Much more coming up on Overdrive. We'll talk to Darren Drager in a little bit and Josh Lewenberg next, so don't change the channel. We're on TSN2, TSN 1050 in the iHeartRadio app.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Don't be shy, shy, shy. La, 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 la.
Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brendan Dunlop in for Hayes alongside Frankie Corrado. Just waiting on big news to change up the show, Grappler. Yesterday, we were sitting here thinking it was just another Wednesday. We'd get to a multitude of topics. We had a soccer guest in the first hour. We had some baseball. Thought we were going to get into some golf. And then Auston Matthews re-signed.
Then we played the greatest hits of Overdrive. We had Joe Bowen, we had Gord, we had Noodles,
That's right.
O-Dog.
Yeah.
It was just a parade of friends doing hits.
Ended up being a Hall of Fame day. I tell you what I do. I very much like being in this building. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time. But in addition to yesterday, where I got to speak to some new people for the first time, I met Aaron Korolnik.
Yeah.
Walking around in a nice V-colored suit.
Is it everything you thought it was going to be?
I mean, he was dressed a lot better. I would have said like the unofficial FanDuel odds that he was wearing a polo shirt would have been probably like minus 450.
He's Mr. CFL this year.
But he
He's
walked
doing props and everything.
I know, but he walked in. Looks like he goes shopping with Milt Stiegel.
Yeah,
Like, he
maybe
looked
Milt's
sharp.
taking him shopping.
Maybe that is.
I know him and Davis Sanchez are pretty tight. You know who else is tight with Aaron Korolnik?
Who's that?
Our buddy Josh Lewenberg.
Hey, Josh, do they go shoot around maybe?
I don't know. I think Lewenberg has invited him out to play basketball, but I don't think Korolnik takes him up on it. I think he's afraid of Lewenberg's game.
Josh Lewenberg, TSN Raptors reporter. Is that true, Josh? Is Aaron Korolnik afraid of your game?
That's the only logical explanation that I can think of, and I'm happy that you guys point that out because, I keep inviting him out. I have a weekly run, and during the summer, a lot of the guys go away and whatnot, so we always need subs. And every week, I'm asking AK to fill in, and he always turns me down. I figured, okay, well, he's got to be up early every morning, and then this is a late run every Tuesday, so I figured that must be it. But no, I think your explanation makes a lot more sense. Let's go with that.
Late run every Tuesday, eh? Do you need any slow new dads? Could I join you?
We exclusively have slow new dads.
Oh, that's the deal. Okay, that's the age bracket we're in right now. All right, I like that. Got a lot of real basketball to talk about, some international basketball for a change. I'm a big fan of watching Canada on the international stage. I am one of many Canadians that wants to see our country back at the Olympics in men's basketball. The FIBA World Cup begins against France for Canada, their first game tomorrow morning in Jakarta. How does it look, this matchup against France? It's not the easiest one to start things off with.
No, and it's a pretty good test right out of the gate. I mean, obviously a tough test, but I think that's what you want. If you're this Canadian team that's going into the tournament with high hopes and big expectations, I think it's going to be to their benefit here that they spent the last month together building chemistry and figuring things out under new coach Jordi Fernandez, but also playing against some really good teams. And that's not nothing considering the history of this program, at least the recent history, right? Because for so many years, it was like a talent issue. There just weren't enough really good, high-level Canadian players in the NBA to play in these tournaments. And then all of a sudden, you've got the Andrew Wigginses and all these great players that are funneling through the NBA, and they're starting to commit and play for the team. But there wasn't enough time for them to gel and figure things out together. So even with really talented rosters, 2015 in Mexico City comes to mind, 2021 in Victoria, these are all tournaments where Canada was favored. But they kind of just threw that talent together last minute. And what ends up happening, I think, a lot of time in FIBA is things like chemistry and continuity, which a lot of these other countries have in spades, that overshadows, in a lot of cases, trumps talent. So for Canada to have spent the last month playing really, really good teams, Spain and Germany a couple of times, I think that's going to help prepare them not only for this really important game against France right out of the gate, but the whole tournament. And I mean, even without Victor Wembanyama for France, and obviously that's a big break for Canada here, you still got Rudy Gobert and a bunch of really experienced French players, Nick Batum, Evan Fournier. They're bigger than Canada. So I think this is a really important game. It's by far the toughest competition they'll face in round one. And then even assuming they move on, they've got a really tough draw in round two where they'll likely face the defending World Cup champs and number one ranked Spain. And all of these, the record and the point differential in round one carries over. So got to get off to a good start here. Got to win the first game.
Josh, is this the most talented Canadian team that we've seen? Are you a believer in that narrative?
I am not. I have heard the narrative a bunch, and each time I'm like, oh, well, like maybe we've got some short memory here because, listen, if Jamal Murray was playing for this team and Canada had a backcourt tandem, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jamal Murray, it would be pretty hard to argue that this wasn't the most talented team. As it stands now, like it's pretty close. You can make that argument, sure, but is it clearly the most talent that Canada has ever rostered for one of these big international tournaments? I mentioned 2015 earlier, 2021 in Victoria. Both of those teams led by Andrew Wiggins, who was really, really good. And both of those teams actually had more NBA players than this team has. In 2015, I believe they had 9 for the tournament in Mexico City. They had 8 in 2021. They have 7 now. They had, I believe it was 10 coming into camp, but Corey Joseph pulls out, and they lose O'Shea Brissett due to injury, and then, of course, Jamal Murray. So now they're left with 7. I really like this team. I think it's a really good mix of a lot of different things, right? Like, you've got offense with a guy in Shea and obviously R.J. Barrett next to him. That's a great scoring punch in the backcourt. I think their defense on the wing in particular is going to be really, really strong with guys like Lou Dort and, of course, the polarizing Dylan Brooks. And then a couple of vets on the inside in Kelly Olynyk and Dwight Powell. I like the depth that this team has coming off the bench. But there is, I think, much less room for error without Murray out there. And, I think, as I said, this team has some demons that they're going to need to exercise in big moments of the tournament because they've had talented teams before. They've dominated tournaments before. The issue has been winning in the big moments, the games that they've needed to win towards the end of the tournament to either win tournaments, medal in tournaments, qualify for the Olympics. That's something that they haven't done now in 23 years. So that's going to be the biggest test here. Yeah, I'm really excited for the game tomorrow against France too. But ultimately, I'm cautiously optimistic here until I see them get over the hump and get it done when they need to get it done, not necessarily in round 1 or round 2.
Do you think there's any advantage to this being on the other side of the world? I say that because we're coming off of 2 Olympics that were in Asia. We're coming off of a men's World Cup that was in Qatar, a women's World Cup that was in Australia. And there are some players, some nations that do say they feel completely disconnected. Sometimes that's a positive. They're like, they feel so isolated. They're just in the moment. It's great. And other people feel like alone. Do you think there's anything at play with Canada here that it's in Jakarta?
I'm not sure it matters so much. I know that was one thing that they had talked about, the program had talked about a lot, coming off of a few disappointing tournaments and going into a tournament in Victoria back in, it was supposed to be before the pandemic, ended up being in 2021. Mm-hmm. They spent a lot of money and used a lot of resources to host that tournament. Again, with the idea that's sort of the opposite of the theory that you're talking about, where it's like, okay, well, they played in hostile environments before and far from home and a lot of the different time zones and a lot of traveling and all of that. They felt it would be really important for them to have that home court advantage, to be playing on home soil, and ultimately the result was similar. And that's why I say, I'm not sure that it matters so much close to home, far from home. I think both of those things have advantages and disadvantages. Ultimately, it's going to come down to, as I said, I think the chemistry more than anything else. There's no question that this team has talent, more talent probably than any team, any country in this tournament other than the U.S. And even the U.S., it's not like the Americans brought their A-listers here. They're all NBA players. They're all very good NBA players. But there aren't many superstars on that roster. I mean, you could make the argument that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best player in this tournament. And I think at worst, he's number 2 behind Luka Doncic without, again, the U.S. A-listers, no Giannis or Embiid or Jokic. So talent is not going to be the issue here. If Canada doesn't find success in this tournament, it's not going to be for a lack of talent. I don't even think we could put it on Jamal Murray or Wiggins or any of the guys that didn't play. I think the test here is how well has this group come together over the last month? How have they learned the system under Jordi Fernandez? Because, of course, that's been a challenge, too, is learning a new head coach. And ultimately, I think that's going to determine whether or not they get over the hump here over the next few weeks.
One last quick one internationally for you. I think you and I are about the same age. I don't remember the games from 92, but I remember the Dream Team as like a key part of my childhood. And 96 was a big deal. I know Canada hasn't been competitive on the international stage, but do you feel like international basketball is a complete afterthought in this country?
I'm sensing a lot of excitement going into this tournament. I mean, nowhere close to where it should be, considering the level of talent that this country has been producing, and nowhere close to where it will be if, in fact, they qualify for the Olympics. Imagine Canada representing the country in Paris next summer with a pretty good chance to medal and to finish on the podium. I think that's what this country needs in order to take things to the next level here. All these things over the last couple decades, all these steps that we've seen have been helpful. The Vince Carter renaissance, the Raptors obviously turning things around in the most successful era under Masai Ujiri over the last decade. The championship obviously is a big one, Kyle Lowry. But in terms of international basketball, for young kids growing up playing the sport in this country, to watch Canada on the world stage and potentially making noise in the Olympics, I think that's what's missing here. That's the next step. That's what this is all about at this point. Yeah, it would be really nice and really big for Canada to medal in a pretty important, really big, high-level competition tournament like the World Cup here. But ultimately, I think the goal over the next few weeks is to qualify for the Olympics. To do that, they'll need to finish in the top 2 among the 7 teams from the Americas, which, again, assuming things go according to plan, is very, very doable. The U.S. is going to be the favorite there, but outside of that, you've got Mexico, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Brazil. Canada should be better than those teams. It's now just a matter of them actually going out and being better than those teams.
Josh, taking a look at the Raptors here closer to home, it just seems like lately the Raps are making all the wrong kinds of headlines. It just seems like weird news seems to follow them. And, you know, another weird news event comes up between the Raptors and the Knicks, and, you know, a former Knicks employee essentially stealing proprietary information and handing it off to the Raptors. Like, what can you tell us about this story, and what do you know about it right now?
That's a weird one. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's certainly not uncommon for an employee, somebody in the video room or in the second row of the bench in terms of coaching, to go from one organization to another organization and bring with them various ideas or plays or theories or templates or whatever. That happens like almost every day, especially at this time of the year during the off season. But when do we ever see it get to this level where there's a lawsuit for that? It rarely happens, if ever. I don't recall ever seeing anything quite like this. So what's the difference? I think there are a few things that jump out right away. I mean, if the ex-Knicks employee, the former Knicks employee in question here, is guilty of the things that he's being accused of, I mean, that's a pretty egregious example of what I just talked about, is sending thousands of proprietary files from one email to the next, especially, I mean, it's one thing if it's a Knicks email to a Gmail account, that's pretty bad too, but a Knicks email to a Raptors email is pretty negligent, I would say. So I think that stands out first and foremost. But another thing I'll say is the Raptors are not especially liked around the league. It used to be that they weren't respected, and that's not the case anymore. I think they're respected just fine, and Masai Ujiri has a lot to do with that. But I don't think they're especially well-liked, and Masai has something to do with that as well. I mean, being around the league and talking to executives around the league, my sense is that there's a lot of jealousy out there in terms of, or in regards to Masai and his profile and his reputation and what he gets paid. Rightly or wrongly, I think that that's the way that a lot of executives feel about him. And then I think probably also some frustration from having to negotiate with him and the Raptors. And we've heard that a lot over the last few years, is how tough the Raptors are to deal with in regards to trades. And then I also do think, and this is something that I've talked about over the last few months, there is a certain level of arrogance to the way that this organization has carried themselves since the 2019 championship. So we know there's obviously a history between Dolan and the Knicks and Masai as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think that could be a factor in the Knicks deciding to take legal action here in situations where probably a lot of other teams wouldn't.
It's been an interesting story to follow, definitely. Josh, I appreciate it. Enjoy being able to watch Canada play some international basketball, which might mean you field half of the is Pascal getting traded questions that you normally would field at this point of the year. But I'm going to take you up on that offer to come join you for the shoot around, buddy.
Bring Korolnik with
I need it.
Sounds good, guys.
Josh Lewenberg, our TSN Raptors reporter. Follow him on Twitter or the X, JLew1050. It's going to take me a long time to get used to saying the X.
Yeah.
It even comes up x.com now. Like,
Does it?
I feel like
I'm
that's
looking at twitter.com right
I think
now.
you get both. It depends.
Okay.
If you share a link, I think
Yeah.
it says, yeah. I'm
All right.
sharing quite a few links.
I'm looking at something right now that's outrageous on the golf scene. Our boy Colin Morikawa. Why don't you take us to break, and we'll get into it on the other side.
You were so excited that you wanted to tease me, not the audience, that you've got a big golf thing on the other side.
Dude, this cat had an outrageous day. We'll get into it.
The analyst, ex-pro, wants to be the host. This is Overdrive on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Back on Overdrive, you've got Reg Dunlop and Frankie Corrado. Am I allowed to say Reg?
Dude, you're Reg.
Yeah. I mean, I like it, but
You're
I guess...
in my phone as Reg now.
Now? There we
Yes.
go. Just happen to be in the phone, my friend.
That being said, I don't think, I don't refer to myself as the grappler. I don't think you can call yourself Reg. I think that's up to the co-host on this show.
But what if you were hosting opening the segment? When you open your segment, hi, I'm Keith. This is your bets.
I mean, it might be I'm Keith Bauer, also known as the grappler. So maybe
okay.
throw in the Brendan Dunlop,
What
or better known as Reg.
Grappler, what if you hit someone with a text and they hit you with a, hey, sorry, new phone, who is this? What are you saying? It's Keith Bauer, or do you say it's the grappler?
Definitely Keith. I mean, 99% of the time Keith Bauer, but if it's someone who only knows me as the grappler, then I might have to use the grappler moniker.
Okay.
I might have to.
I used to work with a guy named Dan, and I called him Ice Creams. That was his nickname.
Ice creams?
Because he used to own an ice cream shop, and we were in our early 20s.
Yeah.
But he's a business guy.
Yeah.
In his hometown, he owned an ice cream shop. So I called him Ice Creams. And when new people would join the group, we were scriptwriter guys. And someone that I didn't recognize, I just assumed that they didn't work there. I'm like, oh, how long have you known Ice Creams? And then the explanation what? Sorry, what's his nickname? Nah, man, he works with us.
See,
he knows me as Dan.
That's a tough situation because you want to respect the person's name. And also, there's some people where you meet someone and you know what their nickname is, but you're not on that level with them yet. Yeah. So you have to respect the first name, but everyone else is going by the nickname. And it's just how long do I wait until I get into the nickname?
Did you bring are you trying to teach me a lesson? Did you bring this up to teach me a lesson? Because
No.
I would appreciate it.
No.
I called him Bonesy yesterday.
No, but I think Bonesy's fine. I think Bonesy would love that.
I slipped into it and thought, I don't know if I'm at that level. This is the first on-air conversation I've had with him.
It's all you're on that level. You know who's on another level right now?
Let me guess. Someone golfing.
Colin Morikawa.
Wow.
This cat Okay, 9 under, 61 today at East Lake. Not to mention Keegan Bradley shot a 63, 7 under today. But what Colin Morikawa did on the course, he hit 9 shots to inside 13 feet. Like, he's always been a very good iron player, but that's as dialed in as it gets. Now he's 1 shot back of Scotty Scheffler, who, you know, like everyone's been talking about this goofy format and how Scheffler can kind of just run away with it. Man, Morikawa put 9 under on the board today, and Scheffler's 1 under. Now he's 1 shot back. Like, it's going to make for some good weekend golf. It's going to be entertaining.
Yeah. Talk to me on Sunday. Like, I can't get excited about how these rounds are going early in the weekend, like, ever.
Right.
It's just, to me, it's just Sunday that matters. It's good. The people that can't pay attention to the regular season because it's just the playoffs that matter, like, that's me with golf.
Well, okay, so you talk about the weekend. You're going to have Scheffler. If everything kind of stays the way it is, you're going to have Scheffler, Morikawa, Keegan Bradley's in the mix at 10 under, Rick Hovland is in the mix at 10 under. Like, there's going to be some very good golfers, you know, coming down the stretch here. It's early, but, man, I don't know how you follow. Like, what do you follow up a 61 with for Morikawa? It just seems like when he's dialed in, he's very dialed in. He's such a precise player.
We'll follow up on your love of golf with a chat with Golf Canada CEO Lawrence Applebaum in the 6 o'clock hour, 6:30 to be specific. Time for another break. This is OverDrive on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app.